1943, a freezing upstairs bedroom in a Detroit row house. It is 5:30 in the morning. A young woman sits at a makeshift vanity crafted from an old wooden crate. The lone incandescent bulb casts a harsh yellow glow over the peeling wallpaper. In her cold hands, she holds two small objects, a rusted tin lid and the very last sliver of a red lipstick, worn completely flat to the base. Outside, the distant factory whistle slices through the dark. She smells faintly of coal smoke and harsh lye laundry soap. But here is the strange part. When she finally steps out into the bitter morning air to build airplanes for 14 hours, she does not look exhausted or defeated. She looks sharper, more glamorous, and more fiercely put together than most people do today, with bathroom shelves full of expensive serums. She had almost no money, no new cosmetics in years, and yet she commanded the room. These are 15 forgotten beauty tricks 1940s wartime women used to stay beautiful on absolutely nothing, and why their real secret was never really about vanity at all. Now, before we dive in, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. During the Second World War, strict rationing forced women to abandon their favorite cosmetics, pushing them into a sudden era of absolute minimalism. But they did not stop caring about how they presented themselves to the world. Instead, the kitchen pantry and the household utility closet became their new beauty counters. Today, the industry tells us that beauty requires a 12-step routine, endless chemical formulas, and hundreds of dollars. But the women of the 1940s proved otherwise. The tricks on this list did not disappear because they failed. They vanished because you cannot mass market a secret that costs pennies to make it home. Make sure to stay until number 1, because the final item on this list was never just a beauty product. It was a literal act of defiance, and the countdown begins exactly where most makeshift mornings used to start, with a desperate look around the kitchen. Number 15, the beetroot lip and cheek stain. When commercial lipsticks began to disappear from drugstore shelves, women turned to the dirt of their own victory gardens. Beetroot was the ultimate wartime cosmetic. A woman would slice a fresh beet, rubbing the cold, earthy-smelling root directly onto her cheeks and lips. The juice left a deep, vibrant crimson stain that easily lasted through a grueling 12-hour shift at the factory. Today, modern cosmetic companies charge $30 for liquid lip tints that mimic this exact effect. But in 1943, women knew that true glamour did not require a fancy glass bottle. It could be pulled straight from the soil. Number 14, gravy browning for stockings. Silk and nylon were strictly rationed, confiscated by the government to make parachutes and tow ropes. But going bare-legged was considered socially unacceptable. So women improvised with kitchen pantry staples. They used diluted gravy browning powder, like Bisto, or strong black tea to paint their legs, mimicking the tan color of stockings. The smell was faintly savory and strange, but it worked. To complete the illusion, a friend would use a steady hand to draw a straight black line down the back of the calf with an eyebrow pencil, recreating the stocking seam. It was not really about the legs. It was about holding on to a fragile sense of normalcy when the world was falling apart. Number 13, the eyeliner from a burnt cork. When a makeup pencil ran out, replacing it was nearly impossible. Instead, women would save wine corks, hold them over a candle flame until they charred, and wait for them to cool. The burnt edge produced a rich, velvety black ash, smudged along the lash line, sometimes mixed with a tiny drop of petroleum jelly. It created a smoky eye that rivaled any modern coal liner. The faint smell of charred wood became a staple of wartime dressing tables. Fire and ash were the tragic backdrops of the war, yet women ingeniously used those very elements to define their eyes. Number 12, soap shavings for shampoo. Liquid shampoo was a luxury few could justify or even find. Instead, the heavy bar of household lye soap, used for scrubbing laundry and floors, had to serve a dual purpose. A mother would take a metal cheese grater and scrape the hard bar, boiling the shavings in a pot of water to create a thin, alkaline liquid. The sharp, clean scent of lye filled the bathroom. It left hair squeaky clean, though often dry, requiring a vinegar rinse to restore softness. Zero waste was not a trendy modern lifestyle choice back then. It was an absolute mandate of survival. These first few tricks might sound like desperate kitchen chemistry, but look closer. These women were not just mixing gravy and burnt cork. They were reclaiming their identities. Every stained finger and drawn-on stocking seam was a quiet act of defiance against a reality that demanded they give up everything. They proved that dignity does not come in a store-bought jar. And as we move further down the list, the tricks shift from the kitchen counter to the medicine cabinet, where a single, incredibly cheap substance ruled them all. Number 11. Vaseline as the ultimate multitasker. Before the era of 10-step nighttime routines, there was the heavy glass jar of petroleum jelly with its iconic blue seal. Women would dab it on their eyelashes to make them look longer and darker without mascara. They rubbed it onto their lips to protect against the freezing winter wind, and smoothed it over rough cuticles ruined by handling heavy machinery. It was thick, greasy, and smelled faintly of raw oil, but it delivered results. The modern beauty industry wants you to buy a separate, expensive cream for every square inch of your face. Wartime women knew that a single cheap jar could do it all, provided you had the common sense to use it right. Number 10. The pin curl set with rags. If Vaseline was about quick efficiency, setting hair was an exercise in pure physical endurance. With metal bobby pins rusting or disappearing entirely for the war effort, women tore up old cotton pillowcases or worn-out shirts into thin strips. Every night, they would patiently roll damp sections of hair around these rags, tying them tightly against the scalp. Sleeping on a head full of hard, damp knots was genuinely miserable. But in the morning, untying those rags yielded perfect, bouncy curls. This was not a product you could buy. It was a tedious, exhausting skill passed from mother to daughter in the quiet, dim hours of the night. Number 9. Shoe polish as mascara. This is perhaps the most desperate trick of the era, and it reveals the sheer willpower required to maintain a standard. When commercial cake mascara became impossible to find, some women resorted to black shoe polish. Using a stiff bristle brush or a shaved matchstick, they would carefully apply the dark wax to their lashes. The strong, chemical smell of leather polish so close to the eye is terrifying by modern standards. It burned terribly if you sweated, but women endured it anyway. They were not enduring that sting out of vanity. They were doing it to feel put together in a world that had gone completely mad. Number 8. Flour as face powder. A shiny nose was considered deeply unpolished, but proper face powder was a rare luxury. So women walked right back into the pantry and reached for finely milled cake flour or plain cornstarch. Patted lightly over the face with a homemade cotton puff, the fine white dust mattified the skin perfectly without clogging pores. You might step out of the house smelling faintly of raw baking dough, but your complexion looked entirely flawless under the harsh, unforgiving factory lights. By this point, the pattern is no longer about just finding cheap substitutes. The early tricks solved immediate physical problems. But the next few rules were different. They were not just about makeup, they were about how a woman carried herself through the world. As we move closer to number 1, the focus shifts from the face to the body, and the rules become even more precise. Number 7. The snood and the victory haircut. When millions of women traded their kitchen aprons for factory overalls, long flowing hair suddenly became a fatal liability around heavy machinery. But rather than simply chopping it all off in defeat, they innovated. They rolled their hair up into intricate face-framing victory rolls or tucked it safely at the nape of the neck into a crocheted net called a snood. What was essentially a government safety mandate was quickly transformed into a patriotic beauty standard. Today, hair trends change simply to sell new styling tools. In the 1940s, a hairstyle was a uniform of resilience, proving that practical safety did not mean sacrificing femininity. Number 6. Repurposed parachute silk. With the military hoarding every scrap of nylon and silk, store-bought lingerie and wedding dresses became things of the past. But women found a loophole falling straight from the sky. Defective or salvaged military parachutes made of pure silk were highly prized. Women would carefully dismantle the massive canopies, washing away the dirt of the battlefield and transforming the fabric into delicate underwear, nightgowns, and even bridal gowns. Think about the profound weight of that action. They were taking an object designed for war, an instrument of survival, and meticulously stitching it into something soft, intimate, and deeply personal. It was a refusal to let the brutality of the era harden their private lives. What looks small from the outside often carries the heaviest memory, and the lengths these women went to maintain those memories were staggering. Number 5. The lemon juice and sugar setting. Lotion commercial setting lotions were expensive and rare, so women raided their sparse rations to create a stronghold for their hair. A mixture of sugar dissolved in water or squeezed lemon juice was combed through the hair before it was pinned up. Once it dried, the hair was set like cement. It was incredibly sticky, occasionally attracting bees in the warmer months, and it made the hair feel stiff and brittle. But it held the curl through a 12-hour shift of welding or riveting. They chose physical discomfort over looking disheveled. It was a quiet, rigid discipline that modern convenience has almost entirely erased. Number 4. The invisible art of make, do, and mend. While not a cosmetic, this was the most crucial aesthetic rule of the decade. As clothing rations tightened, throwing away a garment because of a hole was unthinkable. Instead, women practiced the painstaking art of invisible mending. They darned socks, turned frayed shirt collars inside out, and patched wool coats so expertly that their repair could not be seen by the naked eye. Today, we throw a shirt away if a button falls off. But in the 1940s, a woman's dignity was woven into those tiny, invisible stitches. It was a matter of intense self-respect to step out of the house looking flawless, ensuring that no one could tell exactly how much your family was struggling. The closer we get to number 1, the less this is about solving problems and the more it is about pure identity. The final 3 items on this list are no longer just wartime tricks. They are the deeply personal armor a generation wore to face the unthinkable. Number 3. The ration cold cream. By 1943, luxurious skincare was a distant memory. The heavy glass jars of cold cream that women used to slather on generously every night were now strictly rationed if you could find them at all. But instead of abandoning their nightly routine, women simply adapted. They learned the discipline of the sparing touch. A single tiny dab of cream, smelling faintly of rosewater and beeswax, had to cover the entire face. They scraped the very bottom of the jar until the glass was perfectly clean. Today we are told to use handfuls of product, layering serum over lotion over oil. But for a wartime woman, that tiny drop of cold cream at the end of a 14-hour shift was not just about moisturizing her face. It was 5 quiet minutes of grace. It was a reminder that underneath the grease, in the factory grime, she was still herself. Number 2. The posture of resilience. When rubber and elastic were entirely diverted to the war effort to make tires and gas masks, the foundation garments that gave 1940s women their iconic silhouette, the girdles and corsets, vanished. You might think this would cause a collapse in the era's formal standards. It did not. Without elastic to hold them in, women relied on something much harder to manufacture: pure physical discipline. They pulled their shoulders back, straightened their spines, and held their chins high. It was an exhausting physical effort to maintain that posture all day, but they refused to slouch. When material support was stripped away, they provided their own. It was a physical manifestation of not giving up. And now we reach the one that explains all the others. The final rule was never just about the object, it was about what happened around it. Number 1, the Victory Red Lipstick. During the darkest days of the war, the government issued strict bans on the production of almost every cosmetic. But there was one glaring exception: red lipstick. Authorities, including Winston Churchill, recognized that lipstick was not a frivolous luxury. It was a vital tool for public morale. Picture it. A mother stands in front of a bathroom mirror in a quiet, freezing house. Her hands are rough, cut, and calloused from working an assembly line. She has not bought a new dress in 3 years. Her stockings are drawn on with gravy browning. But then she picks up a cardboard tube, because metal was too precious to be used for lipstick cases, and carefully applies a sharp, vibrant layer of Victory Red. She presses her lips together. She lifts her chin. That red lipstick was a message to the enemy, to her children and to herself, that she was not broken. It was a refusal to surrender to the ugliness of the era. It was not vanity. It was armor. And when a daughter stood in the hallway watching her mother apply that crimson streak before walking out the door, she was not learning how to be pretty. She was learning how to be unbreakable. The physical tube of lipstick eventually ran out, but the posture it created did not. And that brings us to the real legacy these women left behind. These 15 habits did not vanish from our lives because they failed. They did not disappear because they were ineffective. They disappeared because they were too cheap to sell and because they required something the modern beauty industry actively discourages: pure patience and self-reliance. What we truly lost was not the beetroot lip stain, the burnt cork, or the makeshift face powder. We lost the profound household intelligence of looking at an empty shelf and knowing exactly how to survive it. We lost those silent mother-to-daughter teachings that happened in the freezing, dimly lit hours of the morning, where dignity was passed down without ever being called a lesson. Somewhere in a faded black and white photograph tucked away in a drawer, a woman is still standing tall. Somewhere, a kitchen light is still glowing over a makeshift vanity. And without a single word, the lesson begins again. If your mother or grandmother passed down any of these wartime secrets to you, share them in the comments below. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the video on your screen right now for more forgotten history.